This is a mess. Hey guys, welcome back to Lucky Hands Garage, and yeah, this is a mess. Uh, Bike was given to me with a fuel pump problem, but full battery and nothing turns on. So yeah, we got a long way to go on this one. So I'd like to apologize for my first video. I'm not used to this whole camera thing. I'm used to just working, so documenting things is kind of weird for me. So bear with me while I go through these leaps and bounds and hurdles. So let's get started with this. I have my trusty voltmeter. We're going to find out why we're not getting voltage from the battery to the bike. Here we go. Alright guys, here all I'm doing is I'm just doing the basics, checking fuses, checking from the battery, checking relays. And like I said, really nothing real exciting. What's kind of funny is in hindsight, I touched the problem like 5 times, but because it's not in the manual and it doesn't say what it really is in the manual, it kind of threw me off. As you can see, like in this point, I'm actually testing where the terminals land, not realizing that the culprit is attached to it. Here I test the coils, which I talk about. We may have to test them later, but ultimately I really didn't. Alright, so I'm going to take this bezel off that goes to the key switch. We're going to find out if maybe the key switch isn't hooked up. Because in the front here, we have some wires that have been pulled out and wrapped around this light bar. And maybe that means somebody's got in there. Let's see. It always amazes me that Japanese bikes rely on T5s, T6s for Allen wrenches. And then the Torx picks are always 27 and 25. Unless it's a Honda. And then I don't know what the hell they're doing. It's like 10 different sizes all in one. So after getting the windshield off and the key switch cover off, I found that the key switch was plugged in and everything was fine in the key switch. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that you have to rule out all the components before you limit it to one section, and it seemed to all be in that battery box area. Now the owner did tell me that the battery that is in it is not the correct battery, and he actually flipped it around, so I kind of ruled it out. Oh, and in case I haven't mentioned it, this is my second shop dog, Bo, who is the best at being in the way at all times. My other shop dog is guarding Harleen as if his life depended on it. Ain't that right, Luke? Yeah, nobody's getting that bike. Doesn't run, but nobody's getting that bike. Didn't say he was the smartest shop dog. cast gold. He went for the good stuff. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm checking to see if I got 12 volts running to the solenoid here, or starter module, whatever they want to call it in the manual. And I have 12.67 volts running to it. And I have a very awkward reading on the negative side of this. It jumps. So that clearly means we've got a ground issue from the battery to the bike. So let me test to the actual starter, which is all the way down here.
$2,000 later.
Well, I bet you're all wondering what this is for. Well, this exposed wire here comes off the service connector, and the service connector says it's ground. So I just grounded it straight to the battery with a couple the gator clip and see what happens. So we're not getting any power that's leaving this junction, which tells me there's either this is not reaching ground or this junction has a blown fuse. Good Lord Jesus. Oh, it's in a little holder. You gotta love the Japanese. You gotta take off this connector to get that out. And then when you go to put it back together, you completely forget about that connector because it was just an annoyance from the beginning. All right. So this box is what's called an intermittent box. It basically goes between the starter and the battery. And in the manual, it states that this box is nothing more than a pass-through until you read right here where it says 30 fuse. And it's corroded. So some of the problem could be that this connector being corroded as bad as it is could have caused a short. So we're going to clean all that out. We're going to put a new 30 amp fuse in it, and we'll see what happens. All right, so this is the new fuel pump that he got from the old Jungle website. And I tested the old one. The old one is good. So he replaced the fuel pump because he thought the fuel pump was bad. So all I'm doing is I'm plugging it into the harness, which he took off. Still don't know why. And then going to see if the pump turns on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a strong little guy. Try it one more time. Oh, we're going to do it one more time for shits and giggles here. Sounds like my wife in the bathroom, I'm telling you. All right. So we know that works. So if that works, then I'm just going to leave that there. So if that works, then we know that we're going to get fuel. So if we get fuel, that means we should get spark. If we don't get spark, then we're going to have to dive into the coils. But we can test the coils. That's not an issue. We can test them from the outside. So the next step on this bike is putting it back together. All right, so unlike Harleen, that they were running without a tuner, he was smart enough to have a tuner. But in order for it to run, it's got to be hooked up. So the corrosion on that is enough to make it lose connectivity. So I'm going to change the connector on this because we've got a ton of wire, and I'm going to hook it up to the negative, which it needs to be. And it looks like it might have all been a blown fuse and a loose connection. So I'm going to get that going, and then I'll be back in a second. All right, so it's not my prettiest connector job. I'm definitely going to replace this before I give it back to the customer and do it right with heat shrink and all that. So, as I said, this seemed to have been a huge problem, causing this to short out, which would cause the bike to shut down. So, now that we got that straightened out for right now, we should be able to start this thing. So, that nice little, ha, come on, yeah, no, I didn't get it. And then when the dogs ran in, they were like, yeah, you're going to get it, Dad. Then it was like, all right, we better leave him alone. He might throw a 2x4. That's not going to happen. It's going to start. Can do it. Runs like a Singer sewing machine, doesn't it? All right. So the main causes, back to what I was saying, is this, which is the connector for the power commander. The fuse was blown and the connector was corroded. So this whole time he was throwing fuel pumps at it when really it was just corrosion buildup on the battery connections and the starter direct box. So because of that, this is what we've gotten so far. This is not professional. It's temporary. I'm going to get the right connector because I just don't have one. And I'm going to heat shrink it, make it look all nice and pretty. And then that's to replace this. Everything's been taken care of here. I got to put everything back together. I just wanted to get it running. And we did find out where the gas came from. Last year, I ran Brody over there with high test in it. It was basically just two things of octane booster mixed in my gas to try to alleviate a putt at a low idle. It did not work. And the guy who told me that was like, well, it works on panheads. Really not the same engine as a twin cam. But either way, we did find out why it smelled so bad. It's basically just octane booster mixed with gas. So that mystery's been solved. This mystery's been solved. And all I got to do is put it back together and get it back to the customer. I think this was a good one. Could have used without the electrocution, but everybody gets a little shocking. Shock me. Ooh. Come on, Luke. Oh. Hey guys. So it's many days later. I had a lot of issues this week at work, so this had to take a back burner. Obviously, we found the issues with the starting issue was that the wire connector was corroded, plus a bunch of aftermarket wiring that probably didn't need to be there, and several other issues, which we took care of in the first video. And we also learned that we might as well not even look at the service manual because parts are there that aren't in the manual. So because of that, we're going to move forward on this project. We got a bit of a lifter tap, and this is a hydraulic lifter, so therefore it should be self-adjusting according to Kawasaki and everything I've read on it, which is another reason why I decided to take a break from it. And from what I've been told, there was a recall on these particular bikes, and they basically just changed the oil. And what they've done is they've added an additive to the oil to basically take care of that lifter tap. Now, I don't know if that's true. We're going to try it. A lot of people are very defensive when it comes to what type of oils, but for this particular one, the Ultra Performance is what was recommended. And if this doesn't work, they say put Marvel Mystery Oil in it. So if worse comes to worse, I go get some Marvel Mystery Oil. So let's get started. All right, so to change the oil, we need a 17 wrench and a 17 socket. Now, if you're going through a service manual, it will not tell you that. It will literally give you A, B, and C, and D. So for reference, you need 17 and 17. Let's take the drain plugs off. I've already loosened the bolts. This is a drain plug, and that's a drain plug on the other side. So what we need to do is we just need to unscrew these, and the oil will come out and hopefully go into this bowl and not all over the floor. There's one. And I knew that was going to happen. And there's two. So this is a crush washer. Now, there has been debate in the Indian world that you don't need them. I have found that you always need a crush washer. The reason why you need it is because it acts as a gasket. This is a gasket drain plug. It has a gasket already in it. You do not change the gasket in this particular one, you change the drain plug. This drain plug's already been changed once. This is a crush washer. Always install your crush washers. Don't give it the mighty herc and just send it, because eventually it's going to leak. So let's get these back installed and let's get some oil in this thing. All right, so this is a K&N filter, so all you need is a 17 millimeter, and hopefully there's not a lot of oil that comes out of this thing, because if there is, we're going to have a ton of problems. To be truthful, a K&N filter is just as good as the factory filter, in my opinion. I think oil filters, you're kind of overpaying for a K&N. Unless it has a different type of diaphragm that opens and closes with pressure, then I would not recommend a K&N. The stock filter does just fine, and that's what we're going to be putting back on this one, and hopefully we'll get it to run the way it's supposed to. So I'll see you when we get the oil back in. Well, guys, besides a few bolts, This bike came in not running, and it's running and riding. Just waiting for these to come in, and then it seems to be good to go. There's a weird fluid noise that's apparently prone in these bikes, but nothing I can really do about it. So until next time, I'm going to enjoy the ride. Maybe this thing starts up and runs.